already did roll call sign in. Yep, it's next on my list. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Plain ball.
All right, I think we're here to discuss the Skyway Towers special land use application. You want to start with your presentation?
Good evening. Just want to introduce myself real quick, give you my address for the record, introduce Mr. Riggs here to you. And then we've submitted a lot of information and materials, and I know you've looked at them, and I just want to be brief. If I could, my name is Richard Rassel. I'm an attorney with Williams Rhymer Plunkett. We're in the Detroit area, 380 North Old Woodward in Birmingham, Michigan. This is Jason Riggs. He's with Kimley Horn, the site acquisition specialty firm that assisted Skyway Towers and Verizon with regard to the location that's proposed this evening and the amendments that have been made to the original application for the wireless communication tower that we're proposing this evening. This binder's got a lot of paper in it, and it's got a lot of references to materials that if anybody wants me to reference for your attention, we can go over all of that in detail. I just want to hit a couple of the high points. First of all, Chris DePonio has been great to work with in terms of getting things scheduled and being available to have the materials be available and to have access to materials for the ordinance and communication and et cetera, et cetera. So we want to thank the community for Mr. DePonio's assistance in that regard. A lot of work has gone into, since 2023, the proposed location of this wireless communication facility. You may recall, I think it may be the same group or it was a private group. I wasn't at the last meeting, but it's the same group of 5, okay.
No, two of us were.
2 of us, okay. Well, we were originally proposing a much larger tower.
Yeah.
A 240-foot tower, which within the way that the ordinance reads, had different setback or requirements from different property lines. What we did in looking at the waiver that was requested the first time through was to come out back and see if we could minimize the impact. So where there was previously 3 boundary line waivers being requested for this property, we have eliminated 2 of them. We did that by reducing the tower height, which has a number of different important implications for the surrounding area. First of all, the tower height went from 240 to 155. That's a very substantial reduction. Obviously, it's an 85-foot reduction in the tower height. Not only does it minimize visual impact from surrounding areas, but it eliminated the need for a lighted tower. And the way the FAA regulations work is that you have to light a tower with a pulsing light for anything over 200 feet. So by eliminating the height, we not only reduced the requirement so that we now only are requesting 1 single waiver from the landlord's adjacent property. We eliminated those waivers from the surrounding area properties that are not affiliated with the landlord, and took away not only some of the visual impact from the height, but also the pulsing light, which I think is a very significant change. There was a concern from one of the property owners previously about noise, and we have replaced the manufacturer on the generator. We've switched it out to be a Kohler generator, which in this instance is quieter than the previously proposed generator. So we are under the decibel level, not just right at it like we were before for the maximum. We feel that in looking at the ordinance here in your community, we meet all the requirements. And from the Federal Communications and Telecommunications Act standpoint, a couple of things we've documented and we'd like to speak about very quickly here this evening. First of all, wireless communication facilities are infrastructure in today's world. None of us love power lines, but they're part of life. Wireless towers are part of life now today. We have the need for first responders, obviously police and fire and ambulance, but we have school districts and we have hospitals and old elderly care and ambulance and other facilities that have to be able to communicate with each other. People need to be able to communicate with each other. Kids have to be able to reach their parents and vice versa. It's not communication through wireless communication. It's not just for convenience. It's an essential part of life as we know it here today in 2025. So wireless towers are required by the FCC for licenses that are afforded to companies like Verizon, which is going to be the anchor tenant here, but it's going to allow co-location, of course, as is this national mandate. So the AT&Ts and the T-Mobiles and the Crickets of the world can co-locate, and the Xfinities can co-locate on this tower, so we don't have more towers than we need to meet all the different service requirements in the surrounding area. So what you do next is you go around and you try to determine where there's gaps. And there's a gap here. There's a gap in the location in the general area surrounding where we are going to be locating this tower. It's needed to be able to fill that gap. The FCC requires that of companies like Verizon if they want to remain licensed, so that all folks can receive, what we call now maximum bars. So we have service for first responders and for just ordinary consumers like myself or like most of the people here, but that have critical infrastructure needs. Once we do that, we will try to go around. And in our searching, we go to neighbor properties. We've submitted all the different letters we submitted to everyone. This is the least intrusive alternative that was available. It requires the least tree cutting. The only waiver we're seeking here this evening now, after having reduced the tower height to meet your ordinance requirements, is a boundary waiver from the landlord's property itself. We asked the landlord if it were possible to do what is called a lot combination to eliminate the lot line so there wouldn't be a waiver needed. But the landlord in this instance, Mr. Bossi, wanted the property line to stay in existence for estate planning purposes, as there are parcels there that he wants to give to his children. That's what we were told. And we have, we believe that sets forth a basis within the only possible hardship being felt here is by the landlord himself, and he and his family are obviously waiving their right to come here this evening, and in effect they're asking for this to be accomplished. And so we've reduced all other waivers. We fit within the requirements of the ordinance structure here. We meet the FCC requirements for the gap that's necessary to be filled. We've looked at other sites, much larger parcels that were considered would have required a tremendous more tree cutting and much longer access routes that would have been more intrusive. And by bringing the tower height down, we've eliminated both pulsing light and some of the visual impact that is sometimes necessary, but it can be minimized. So we feel that we've gone through what is the diligence necessary to make what we think is a compliant proposal to you this evening. And like I said, Mr. Riggs and I can address any specific questions you have, but we feel we've tried to work through the issues, and we thank Mr. DePonio for his preliminary.
All right, thank you. Have anything you'd like to add?
No, I'll just be happy to answer any questions.
And Mr. Riggs' firm, well, I'm kind of the telecommunications act guy. Mr. Riggs is his firm, and he were on the ground at the site acquisition process. Why does the tower have to go here? Why does it fill the gap? Why does the RF engineering process show that there's a gap here? And what efforts were made to look at other sites? So those are questions we wanted to be able to answer if you had specific concerns.
I believe those were presented on last time as well. Okay. But these three have not heard any of those, so if they have any questions.
Well, we'll do it after public comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's open this up, I guess, for public comment.
Why not put it here? Why not put it out here?
No trees.
I mean, why put it in our residential? It's right by our house.
Please state your name first for the record, please.
Tina Sutterington. I live on Barrick.
I'm sorry, is it okay to try to answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, we have specific radio frequency maps which show where the gaps are located. So we have a very small search ring in which we have to try to put the tower in order to meet the coverage requirements. So I think the suggestion is why not put it maybe on the township property, but that wasn't part of the search ring that was discussed by Kimberly Horn during the process. I have the radio frequency maps wouldn't have shown that this is not a location, so the township was not approached specifically with a request.
Well, we couldn't have it here, we're within a half mile of another.
Right, and so the half mile is typically the separation
Right.
point, so
Yeah.
in looking through the letters that were sent to folks, and knowing that right near the lake, we can't, it's prohibited completely. We had to look at parcels that were more inland from the lake, but we're still within the search ring proposed by the RF engineers, because otherwise there's no point in building a tower at all.
Why not put it on state land across the street?
Yeah,
And state land typically, in the state of Michigan is unavailable. So we did send a letter to the state of Michigan, but it was not responded to, and that's in the packet.
well, that's just a non-response, and
But
there
the state
could
of
be some
Michigan,
follow-up to
Yeah.
that.
the state of Michigan doesn't lease land for telecommunications towers, at least not in park systems. I don't know that that's the absolute across the entire state of Michigan as it relates to uninhabited parkland, but I know for a fact it's in the parklands, and we did not get a response from the state of Michigan to our outreach.
Yeah, Pat Cooper, I live not too far from Dort Road. How wide is the area that you can consider for this in order to accomplish your frequency needs or your frequency gap? I mean, how big of an area can you consider? Is it a square mile? Is it 3 square miles? What is it?
Yeah, so.
We'll let Mr. Riggs address that in more
Yeah,
particular.
so typically, the RF engineer provides a search ring area. I'm not exactly sure of the exact distance on this one. Some can be a mile, some are half mile, some are even less. I think I'd have to see it again to know the specific.
Yeah, it would be
dimension.
nice to know that specific, because
And
there's
so,
probably some non-residential zoning areas that could be considered.
yeah, so we reached out to every, you can see here, this is the search area, half a mile search ring that was provided. So anywhere in here is where we could look at, not saying, like, even if we got something here, it may not work. So we try to get 3 to 5 potential candidates in a search ring. We provide that back to Verizon, and they see how best that fits with their network. And how does it link up to existing sites? How does it maximize their FCC licensing? Because once they start a license, they have to continue to improve that license. They do run the risk of losing that license and not having service in an area at all if they don't continue to improve it.
I've never heard of any Verizon issues out
and-
here.
I drove for a half an hour without service just along here. from
I have
Traverse City.
Verizon, I've never had an area around here where I couldn't get service.
Yeah, so it's to maximize their network, provide reliability. Obviously, with state ground there, a lot of people, are on snowmobiles. I mean, if there's no service or lack of service, especially with the dense forest, that will also improve E911 service to the community. Hopefully,
That's the coverage map.
Yeah.
That was some of the RF data. The
so
red
you can
being
see
areas.
all this, the white and the red is basically limited to no service at all. And so this is a gap in coverage.
So, you're telling me that within this half-mile circumference, there isn't anywhere else you can put this thing except in the middle of a neighborhood?
We've reached out to all the landowners in the area. We can only go where a willing landowner has accepted to work with us. So we found that willing.
Have you looked at
person.
all township properties, including the cemetery?
The cemetery is well outside of that radius.
Is it?
Well outside of it.
And I also heard that there might be a lot or an area on a residential or on someone's property that already has an existing tower that isn't even being used. It's off Fletcher Road. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of a tower that's not being used.
Steve, are you aware of that?
They took that down 2 years ago.
They did. Is that your land?
It was,
It was your land.
yes.
Is that within this area?
No, the tower's down.
No, but was it within this area?
Probably not. Well, that's over probably just over a mile from that area.
And you have to stay within this exact area.
To meet the RF needs. Yeah.
It's within the radio frequency search ring, which is approximately a half a mile in radius.
Yep.
From a center point, you can, all of the different letters we've sent, for example, to all of the different folks that didn't respond to us are in your packet. That we reached out to, and the Bossies were willing to enter into a lease. It met our search ring requirements. And the only place we could locate without gaining a waiver from anybody other than the landlord itself is the location on the site we've indicated in our site plan.
Pat, do you have any more questions or any more comments?
I have two questions.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was just
sorry.
Pat. And I'll jump to, these two had their hand up, I got you third in line.
Okay, my name is Valerie Steininger, I also live on Barrack Drive. This gentleman, the attorney from Birmingham, you keep referring to letters that were sent to people who would, in the area. And I've never received that letter. Tonight was the first time I ever heard that this was ever even a possibility.
Yeah, or me.
I've never received this letter, and I'm within probably 10 lots of this proposed tower. And the person who owns the property that has agreed, this is a monetary deal, correct? They're going to get paid well for allowing this to go into the neighborhood.
There'll be rent pursuant to a lease that's been signed.
Is there a reason why we did not get this letter that you referred to?
I don't know, I'm looking at I have all of the letters here, so
I didn't get one either.
I can look for the name over
You'd
here.
only get one if your property was within that half-mile search area. If you were just outside of it, then you wouldn't have received one.
I can walk to that easily
But-
from my home.
Excuse me, don't the piece of property have to be large enough to be able
Yeah,
to do that?
that's true too.
It's gotta meet the setbacks so that we can be
Right.
a minimum of 200 feet.
I think that's what
And you're
you're
referring to
asking.
letters offering to
Yeah,
put
these
down
letters, I mean,
property.
they're in
And
the
you're
packet,
referring
I've
to
got them here.
offers-
Drew.
Are
These
you
are,
I
referring to those
definitely have
letters?
Oh, so we were only notified if we had a piece of property large
Correct.
enough to put the tower in?
Correct, and then you're notified by, the
So-
township that this meeting is being discussed. And I believe the last time they were supposed to, I wasn't in charge of it, I don't do that part, but they were supposed to send out letters to everybody, letting everyone know that this was being discussed last time as well.
Everybody within a 300-foot radius
300
of
foot?
that
Oh, okay, wow.
property is who we notify as far as the township
Okay.
goes.
And that's just their ordinances that they have to follow.
300 feet, that's just
That's
the
not very
radius
far.
of the tower.
That's
If I may.
4 properties.
Billy Joe Miller. I was here the last time this tried to go through.
Mhm.
My issue with this is, within 2 acres of this property, we have 2 combat vets. I asked last time if there had been any studies on any noise output that would affect these 2 vets. I was not answered. My other problem is, these people who this property, where this is going to go, do not live here all the time. They are vacationers. They don't have to put up with this. We do in that central area. I'm an acre away. These people next to me are right over the property line. We don't want this there.
I agree.
By no
None of
means
us
do
want
we
it.
want it there.
Sir?
Gerald Smith, Dort Drive. I don't want it in my neighborhood.
I guess I'll speak. Brad White, I'm the property owner, my wife Michelle live right next door to this place. And the neighbors I met them are very nice people, very sweet people, but they're up here maybe 3-4 times max per year. We're here year round. And before I came here, before I get my facts straight, so I'm not just spewing off nonsense to y'all, but homes within 1,500 feet of said cell towers lose anywhere from 7.6% up to 20% in resale value. So am I getting reimbursed for my
Yeah.
7.6%? My 20%? Also, the salesman probably can tell you, well, American Cancer Society tells you that cell phone towers are not bad. Well, American Cancer Society deferred to the World Health Organization and other entities. They identified radio frequency radiation as a human carcinogen. Environmental Health
Yep.
Trust also goes on to say that headaches, sleep problems, dizziness are all side effects of radio frequency.
I'm,
Right next door to it. You talk about decibel levels. How many decibels is a generator going to be? You can put up a deadening wall, sound deadening wall, 10, 12 feet, brick, insulated, and box it in, we're gonna sit there and hear it all night. That's myself, my neighbor also served in the military. I think it's unfair to us people here year round, get railroaded by somebody who's from downstate.
Yep.
It's for a monetary gain. I get it, the world's all about money. Doesn't make the world go round, but you're rolling up here 3-4 times a year max, you're making your neighbors pay for it, that's just inconsiderate. It's distasteful.
Just so everyone's aware, as far as the health stuff goes, we cannot take that into account. It's set by the state. That is nothing that we can, this might even be at a national level, federal level, so I can't touch that. Pat, you had a comment? Generator question though, decibels, could you give him the decibels so we understand
Yeah,
where it's
so,
at?
a couple things. One is the actual facility's, you know, really no different than a home structure as far as noise goes, you know, with HVAC units. As far as the generator, it is insulated. It does have, you know, it's not like it's a, you know, open air kind of thing. It's in a cabinet, and then the decibel levels we were provided at 23 feet, it's at 57 decibels. So
Property line will be 38,
38.
which is below the ordinance requirements.
Pat, I believe you have another comment?
Yeah, the only other comment I would like to make is, well, number one, I echo the opinions of the people behind me. And also, I think that if this tower company were to have this proposal or this ordinance proposal rejected by the township, I think they'd be more inclined to approach the state of Michigan and put it on the other side of Oak Road, because that's all state land over there.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Frederick, County Commissioner for this district. I support my constituents who oppose this. I oppose this tower.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public, go ahead. Fred?
I'm sure that wasn't the only site they looked at. What would be the other one?
And I'm sure they're welcome to disclose that, but what we have to do is take the public comment, and then we look at whether or not we're gonna approve the variance that's requested, and then we would vote from there. So we can't really ask them to switch it before we go through this process.
Probably wasn't another site looked at.
There was
It's their choice to-
a very large section of property within the search ring that was looked at. The property owners that had property size, sizable enough to potentially put one of these towers were contacted. The only property owner which contacted us that was willing to enter into a lease agreement was Mr. Bossi. It fits within the search ring, and therefore we entered into a lease agreement with him and proposed to the township the process that we're here to discuss this evening, which led to us reducing the size of the tower from 240 to 155 feet without the pulsing light, etc. The generator was switched out for a Kohler to reduce the decibel levels at the property line, and the size of the setbacks from any neighboring properties other than the landlord have been reduced to be compliant.
So only one person objected? Except how many were involved?
Yeah, how many were approached that rejected?
All of the different property owners that were contacted within the application package, there's 23 or 24 property owners that received letters,
They rejected.
including the state.
That tells you something, doesn't it?
There.
And only one person agreed to it.
That doesn't live here.
Yeah, part-timer.
I thought last board meeting, they agreed it wasn't going through. And now we're back revisiting it because it dropped on tower height.
Yes, they came back with another application.
But so, I mean, the prior administration was derelict in our duties, so now we're gonna pay for it.
We are
Not saying you guys.
here to review it again, and they're asking for us to review their changes and make an exception still to make a variance. And they're asking us to approve or deny that based on this new application.
So basically, you're getting a quieter generator and a shorter tower. Those are the changes.
And adjustments to the, yes, so that they don't go over property lines outside of the property owner, but it's not the same property.
Could you people direct us on how we could try to stop it?
Yes, there's definitely options outside of it, so the public, or the township side, we have to vote on approving or denying the variance that's requested, or the waiver that is requested. And then outside of that, there's other ways to approach it, and I'm not a plethora of knowledge, but I know there's a lot of resources out there.
How,
Argumentative to you, but if you're denied once, why be giving exceptions to policies? It should be a one and hard and fast.
Well, that's what we're here to vote for. Cause they put through another application, so we have to do our due diligence, review it, open it to public comment, and then the committee will take a vote on it. Any other public comments before we close for discussion?
Yeah, is there anyone in this room who's in support of this? Any citizens sitting in this room in support of this? No? Well, we got our answer.
Any other comments? All right, so we'll close, public comment. Now we'll open it up, for any discussion or questions from the planning committee.
One of the, when I was here the last time, and one of the biggest issues, still continues to be, is having the lot split into two. If, again, with two separate parcels, we still have a spillover, even though it's the current property owner's lot, correct? And apparently for estate planning, he wants to keep them separate. But the driveway it kind of encroaches both two properties, and then the spill, or the fall radius going back to the property owner's, the other lot, is not compliant, which is what the variance is. So my question is for Chris. And if it is for inheritance sake, right, estate planning, I give two properties out like this, are either of them buildable? Or is that gonna be other issues?
It's already built on.
Well, one of them has a home, right? Or one of them has, but the other one is not.
Correct.
And so what kind of, now, do we run into out of compliance issues with, Jack gets this lot with the house, Jill gets the other house without it, now what?
I don't know that they could build on the one that would have the tower.
Right.
That's not really,
Depending on,
Right, and then
But
we
that's
would
not
have to
something
take
we
it on
necessarily-
faith that that's really what it is, right?
Well,
And
that's
so
why-
that could change.
That's why they're asking for that.
Right,
variance.
right.
so yeah, my question is if you could answer for us, from the maps that I read, and I reviewed them a number of times, you guys have photos, you have maps, you have a few different drawings in there. It looks like the, parcel that is going to hold the tower, only has access through the other parcel, crossing lines. Is that accurate?
I believe so, I'd have to look at the drawing again, but yeah, I believe it's coming in.
Okay, so there's no direct access
Yes.
from the road
Yeah.
so you have to cross over one parcel to go to the other one to access it.
Yeah,
That's
with an easement.
Okay, and there's a legal easement that's being sought after, okay. Interesting, so, and they are refusing to,
That's the lot.
you already mentioned it, they don't wanna combine the two lots. So this tower is within that lot, too close to the property line. So if this was sold, it would be out of requirements.
I would say no, because you're granting that easement. You're granting that variance right now.
the waiver.
Well, you're getting a variance now
For the driveway.
for the driveway,
And
they're requesting a variance for the safety
Right,
border.
right,
For the second.
And that's
Right.
really what we're
right.
discussing here, no other
Right.
things really play into it, is do we wanna approve a variance or a waiver on the setback line to the
East.
east side of
I
the
believe
property?
they need a variance west too.
Do you need a you only
We
need
just need the one variance.
one variance,
The others are, the other to the east, correct.
okay.
But
So the
you're
north
gonna
and
be
west
100
have been cured by
You're gonna
that.
have a 10-foot antenna on top, lightning rod?
That's part of the it's part of the tower.
I
And
think
we're
it's
only
really
160 feet away from the west line?
That's correct, according to,
So
yes,
it'd be
according to
5
the
feet over if it fell?
I'm sorry?
It would be 5 feet over the line if it fell
It'd
directly
be 5
west?
feet under.
Well, he's asking if the lightning rod is above and beyond the 155, or if that's included in the 155.
Let me look real quick.
What I read is additional.
That's what I thought too, was that the 10-foot lightning rod was above 155.
We can reduce it if it's, I mean, we can reduce it down to 5 foot.
Yeah, I mean, we,
Yeah.
I mean, the 155 can include,
No,
easily
we're
can
not.
include the tower, can easily can include the associated antenna equipment.
Okay.
I mean, we can absolutely agree that that was the intent.
Okay.
It's, the intent is that the entire structure would, be to the measurement to the property line compliant, under the 200 feet.
Okay, because what I read is that 10 foot is an additional to the 150.
Yeah, and that, if there's any confusion over that, we can make sure that that's compliant, that it's, the lightning rod is included within the 155 feet. And again, I just wanna make sure these wireless communication facilities can be tough for people to understand why they have to be built, but this is effectively public infrastructure today. And we have requirements under our licensing with the federal government to have to place these in places where there's a gap. We did the diligence to look at whether there are at least alternative or intrusive alternative sites. This is the site that we have to work with, and we have to work with the property owner within there. It's not because we're looking to not work with the community as it relates to its ordinance structure. And other than the one waiver from Mr. Bossi, who had a concern about the lot split issue, and he's the only property owner that's viable for us to work with.
Yep.
We have to work with him as well, and that's
He's
what
the
we're
only
trying
one
to
that you have at this point in time, and you have to understand that you still are asking for a variance, you are asking for an exception.
Right.
So it's not that you've met every criteria, you haven't, and we're gonna discuss it.
Say that doesn't really care what the neighborhood thinks.
Yes, public comments closed, I'm sorry. I have to close that, I have to follow the rules, best of my ability, I'm not great at it, I'm trying. So you are asking for a variance, so to say that you're not is not accurate.
Well, no, we are asking for a waiver.
Yep,
That's
and
right.
we also have the right to not approve a variance if it doesn't fall in to the requirements that are laid out. So, I understand what you're saying, and that you've done your due diligence, but we do need to stick with facts. When I built my pole barn, I had to join my lots. That was what I had to do. There was an exception for me, and that was a pole barn.
Okay.
I
So,
had to do the same thing for my shed.
so I understand where you're coming from, but please understand that we're looking at this strictly where we can look at it, which is, are we approving this exception or not? We're not looking at any of the other issues,
No,
we're focusing.
And we respect that. We understand, and within the context of that, we do respect that tremendously. We have tried to shoehorn this in here as best we can so we can meet our coverage requirements.
And I know that you guys
And we have to work with the community and try to fit within the ordinance structure. We're trying to make sure that there isn't a prohibition of a tower here, and that's what we're trying to work to make sure that you're trying to make sure that the ordinance is strictly followed, and we're trying to make sure there isn't a effective prohibition under the Telecommunications Act, and then that's why we're here with the best proposal that we have this evening.
And I know what other conversations were in the past, but we're following just strictly to what we can look at
I understand.
and make the decisions on, which would be are we gonna allow a variance or not? And that's all that we're focused on right now. And so with that, do you guys have any other questions before we take this to a vote?
I'm still concerned about the lots being split, so that's the only concern.
Is it,
So, what we'll do is, let's take this to a vote. So the decision to vote, what we're voting on right now is to decide whether or not we're gonna approve this permit that's requesting a variance from the property line on the east side, or deny it. Any questions?
No.
All right,
So you're saying that this is already effectively approved, you're just approving a property line?
No,
public comments closed. I appreciate it, but we have to go through this process.
Go through your process.
I motion to vote. Give a second.
I second it.
All right. Let's do roll call vote. Yay is in favor of approving the permit. Nay is against. just go in order here. Steve?
No.
Okay. Scott?
No.
Brent? No. Rob?
No.
Chris?
No.
Alright. The permit has been denied at this point. Any other questions or any other business we need to discuss? Chris, do you have anything else on the list? Alright. I call to adjourn the meeting at 6:35.
Thank you.